the Desert Tiger Podcast.
I'm fantastic. How are you doing today, Matthew?
I'm great. The song drops at 12 a.m. tonight, so it's a pretty good day.
Ooh, yes. It's always got to be exciting on that precipice, the verge of a new exploration, a new adventure coming out to the world.
Yeah. Super excited for it.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to dive behind this new track here, Love's Dead, what it means to you, and of course, some of the rest of your musical journey here today.
I'm good whenever.
All right. So, first off, I think I want to start off with this process, because from like what I can read, you've been building and crafting your sound for about 6 years now.
Yeah.
So what has this process been like? What have the ingredients that have gone into this been?
So, I started making music like when I was probably like 17. So unlike a lot of artists, like they'll be like, oh yeah, I was playing guitar, I was playing piano since I was like a child, but for me, it was like, I didn't know I liked music until I knew I liked music. Right. So it was like I remember one day I walked downstairs and I saw my brother, had just gotten FL Studio, which is like a digital audio workstation program. So he was just messing around on it. I was like, oh, that looks like a ton of fun. Like, like let me try. So I got it and then just started like making beats and like they were really bad, but but like I loved it and just started building that. And it was like for a while I thought I was going to be like a DJ. Like that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to be like the next Martin Garrix or something, right? So I started just creating these really bad EDM beats, but again, I thought they were cool and like that's what counts. So kept building it up, and then eventually I was like, well, why shouldn't I sing on my tracks? Why shouldn't I write stuff? Because I would listen to like a lot of my influences and just be like, man, like they're saying really cool stuff. I want to do that too. So I kind of just I never had like a vocal background, like any vocal lessons, or I never had like any writing lessons or anything. I was always good at English and stuff, and I liked like physically writing, like whatever. But I kind of just dove into it and fell in love with it. And then, yeah, like I made the most improvements in my sound probably in the last year. Like out of all those 6 years, like literally 5 of them were still like figuring stuff out. And then in the past year, I really started to like figure out what worked for me and what kind of sounded good for my voice.
Absolutely, and that's it. Is sometimes you need to lay down that foundation, those stepping stones, in order to actually reach that point with what you're comfortable with, what you're creating, enough to let it out into the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So, of course, there were a few tracks that were released before your first initial singles. So, those first stepping stones, what was it like to let those out?
So, the first song I ever got on Spotify, I was just releasing songs for fun on SoundCloud. And then mainly like I had this obsession with just making like little like 1-minute songs that were like, that was it. It was just like a minute and I'd post them on Instagram. Like just, that was it. And like, it was just for fun because I like to just think of a new idea and start it and not really have to spend so much time on one song, because I didn't really have the capability, I guess, at the time to fully complete mix and master like a proper song. So I just made these short little 1-minute songs. And in like late 2018, so like I think it was like probably November 2018, one of my good friends now, but at the time like I didn't even know who he was, but he messaged me on SoundCloud. His name's Luca, and he's like, artist name is Neptune, and he told me like, oh yeah, like, yo, you have like a great voice, like let's make a song, I can get it on Spotify. And at the time I had like no clue that you could just get songs on Spotify. Like I didn't know about DistroKid or any of that stuff, so I was super excited like by that. And we put together this song called Illusion, and I remember like I think it ended up doing like, it did like 20K streams or something, and like not too long. And for me, that was a huge deal at the time, because I was like, I was dropping songs on Instagram and getting like maybe like half my followers to like maybe listen to it. And I was like, this is super cool. And so I kind of just put out music. Like it was like they were completed songs, but they weren't like my best work, obviously. But you're right, like they were stepping stones. And I collaborated with a lot of artists, like just making various songs that were a little bit different in style, a lot of indie pop, and then like even like a deep house record called Runaway Love. And those songs like took off, like they were getting like, over 1 million streams. And I was just like, oh, okay, like now we have this project, and I'm like, okay, like now I can't release music for like 6 months because we were just really working on this new direction. And tonight when Love's Dead drops, that'll be like kind of the first song where people are going to hear me sing in this way that I've never sung in before, and just like this sound that's totally new. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. All right. All right. So you mentioned working with various co-writers and producers, collaborations. So how important was that to learning those key final steps to polishing yourself to get to this point?
I think like working with other people kind of just opened me up to like sounds and beats that like I wouldn't normally, I guess, produce myself. And a lot of it like helped me realize how much I really love songwriting, and how I've always like, I started off as a producer and I still produce all my demos for my songs. Everything's like before it goes to my producer, AJ Healy. Like I do everything myself, including tracking the vocals in my home studio. So it was kind of like, it kind of showed me how much I love songwriting, because they would send me like a half finished song already and just be like, can you write to this? I'm like, yeah, I can write to this. And I just, write a full song. And then like they'd be like, oh, this is super cool, and they would just kind of polish up the sound, like the production and stuff that like I'm okay with doing and I enjoy doing, but I definitely love songwriting way more. Like that's what I want to do fully. Like I want to write my own songs. I want to sing my own songs, like all that stuff. Right. So it kind of like helped me realize how much I love that, and just also like how much I just love the process of just working with other people and just sharing ideas. And like, it'll like, like no matter what happens along the way, when the end song comes out, if the end result is good, you're just like, okay, it was worth it. Like everything's great.
Allows you more time to focus on the lyrics and the song itself and your presentation, as opposed to trying to handle every aspect.
Yeah, for sure.
Of this monster that is the music industry. All right. So now that you've been working on this sound, now that Love's Dead is going to be coming out, what is this new sound, this new energy that you're trying to capture?
So, it's kind of funny. The way this sound came to be was I was because I had I had taken vocal lessons for a year after a certain point, like last year. So from like 2019 to like 2020, like August, I took vocal lessons. And so like I kind of learned how like some useful techniques that maybe changed the way I started singing, but mainly what really did it was my vocal coach would always just tell me like, like one day like your voice is just gonna like do what you want it to do. Like he's like, it's literally like that. He goes, you practice every day, you do, and then one day you figure out your voice. And I'm like, okay, cool. So basically I was working on this song. We finished a song called Get to Know Me, and like I sang really soft, and then we did this other song called Bad Dream where I also sang soft, and my manager would keep being like, yo, can you like yell? And I'm like, I don't know, I've never tried. Right. So then this other song called Deja Vu was probably like the first one where I kind of like projected my voice more and kind of just like push this sound. And it was kind of like, the way I can describe it's kind of like a punk pop. Like it almost reminds me of like early 2000s, like punk pop a little bit. A lot of people, it's funny, people are always like, you remind me of like Blink 182 and Owl City, which is hilarious because I actually never listened to Blink. Like I've listened to them now, and like I'm like, man, this is awesome, but I never listened to them growing up. Like that was like, maybe I heard like their biggest songs like on the radio or whatever, right? Because they were the biggest songs, but I never like I wasn't listening to them on the everyday, like on an everyday basis, like it wasn't like, I didn't really have a huge music taste when I was young. It was mostly just like whatever my parents put on the radio, right? So, but yeah, that's the best way for me to describe the sound. It's like a very punk pop kind of direction that I'm taking, I think.
All right. I actually come from the pop punk world.
Oh, really?
And have toured in some pop punk bands.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I can definitely say that what I've heard of Love's Dead definitely fits that vibe for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, I find that like hilarious. Like I never listened to, I was never a punk pop guy. It's like, but then all of a sudden, like once I was always like a 2000s pop guy, like, you know, like Justin Timberlake and stuff. Like I thought that stuff was awesome. And so like once I started like you projecting my voice more, it kind of gave me like those vibes. Like I was taking like 2000s pop and mixing it with like punk pop, and it was like, you know, which still is punk pop, but there's elements of like that early 2000s aspect in there, I think, still just from my childhood and hearing those songs.
It's definitely something that's starting to make a little bit more of a comeback for
Yeah,
sure.
for
It's
sure.
been building up for the last few years, and then with
Hmm.
Blink releasing a new album and going on tour, MGK
Yeah.
releasing his new album, which basically like took the game to a whole new level for
Yeah,
the genre. So
and that's another thing too, like everybody that's, you know, because we sent these songs out to a lot of people already, and people will be like, oh, like he sounds like Machine Gun Kelly, and I'm like, it's I wasn't trying to do that. It was like I remember when like I like Machine Gun Kelly. I listened to that whole album. I think it's great. But I was never trying to do that. It was like I remember when that album dropped, Tickets to My Downfall. When that dropped, my friends were like, "Yo, you kind of sound like this guy," and I'm like, "What?" And I listened to the whole album, and I'm like, "Oh man, people are gonna think I'm copying him now." But I was like, you know what, whatever. Like I'm not. At the end of the day, like I love his music and I like my music, so I'm sure like, you know, if punk pop is doing well right now, people are gonna like what I'm putting out too, I think. So I'm happy for him, and I'm happy that that album's doing as well as it is.
absolutely, for sure, it's a whole. No, no, I wrote half this before I even heard
Yeah.
it.
It really was like the whole album, like pretty much everything I wrote was before I heard that anything. I hadn't heard, I didn't even know he was taking that direction. I always like, you know, like I knew he was doing rap, but yeah, it's funny.
Awesome, awesome. All right, so let's dive a little bit further into this new single, Love's Dead, then. So, where was this born out of? Is this personal experience, or are you just sort of right for a vibe?
Yeah. So, I've been saying this a lot lately, but it's kind of funny. Like when I write songs, like I'm very creative for sure, but then I'm also like straight to work, right? Like so like that morning in August, like we were supposed to, well, I mean, I guess there was nothing I had to be doing, but my manager wanted me to work on this other song that was like nearly done, and he loved it, and we're still going to do it, but I was supposed to do that song that morning, and then I kind of like dove into it a little bit, couldn't really think of what I wanted to do. Ended up figuring it out later, but that's besides the point. I started Love's Dead instead. I was like, okay, I just want to start a fresh project, right? It's about like probably like 10 a.m. in the morning in August. And so I worked from like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., like a 12-hour session writing this song. And there was like no specific story because I like to write very relatable songs. Like I don't want people like me to like go into detail and say some lines that like nobody's going to relate to. So I just like take this idea, and in the case of Love's Dead, it was I'd written that pre-chorus first, and I just kind of like I was like, that's the song, like Love's Dead, you know, like get that inside your head. Like that's like the song. So I just kind of immediately wrote everything related to that, and like back and forth from my booth to the production, like just making this demo. And the song was done by like 10 p.m. Like I said, it was like 12 hours. I was like, I was so tired. I was like, I gotta eat food. Like I gotta like get myself like back. Like, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but like anybody that's an artist knows when you do like a long session like that, like you come out of it like, oh yeah, I forgot what life was for a second. I gotta like eat. I gotta like work out. Like gotta do my stuff, you know, but yeah, basically I'd sent the song to my manager and producer, and he was like, yeah, but like, what about the other song? Like the other one we were gonna do, right? And I was like, are you serious? Like, dude, I'm so proud of this song. And then he's like, yeah, no, it's really sick, but like the other one was sick. And then a day later, like just a day after that, I get like a text from him like, yo, this song's really good. He's like, I see what you're doing. Like, I really like this. And then we ended up obviously completing it, making it a real song. And that's kind of how it came to be. There was no really crazy story, luckily. Like, I mean, I mean, I guess that's a good thing that no girl broke my heart enough to write Love's Dead. But, you know, it was, I don't think that really matters. I just care about how people put their personal experiences with the song, like how somebody's going to hear this song and, you know, maybe they didn't have some heartbreak thing happen to them either, but they'll relate in some way to it, like whatever they're thinking. And I think that's awesome. That's what I truly love about songwriting.
Right now I'm not sober, but I mean it when I say I'm over you. And I don't need your closure, but I know what you'll say, cause you always do, yeah. Lately it's obnoxious, all the things you say are toxic. You were my focus, but you lost it. I've been saying this so damn often, but love's dead. Get that shit inside your head. I pretend I know who the fuck I am. Not again, I won't go through this again. Not today, not like you care anyway. Why am I not surprised? I get let down all the time. I'm so sick and tired. What the fuck do I even try? You're so immature. Learn to use some better words. You'll always be the same. Why the fuck don't you ever change? Lost me when you're talking, to be fair. It's probably half to blame on me. I never listen, we need distance. Honestly, I feel relieved. How pretentious, you don't mention all the worst in you I've seen. And I'm starting to believe love's dead. Get that shit inside your head. I pretend I know who the fuck I am. Not again, I won't go through this again. Not today, not like you care anyway. Why am I not surprised? I get let down all the time. I'm so sick and tired. Why the fuck do I even try? You're so immature. Learn to use some better words. You'll always be the same. Why the fuck don't you ever change? Get that shit inside your head. Get that shit inside your head. Love's dead. Love's dead. Get that shit inside your head. Get that shit inside your head. Love's dead. Love's dead. I am not surprised. I get let down all the time.
Absolutely. As songwriters, we can always have an intention to something, but
Yeah.
as listeners as well, everybody
For
has
sure.
their own interpretation, and a certain line can hit you a certain way, and that can
Mhm.
change the entire meaning of a song for someone, just because this line can connect you to a memory or a thought or just somebody that you used to know, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I think is so cool. It's like one word can just make a song so different. And that's what I love about songwriting, just taking the time. It's like sometimes I will go as far to like spend 20 minutes whether I use like a word that's just one pronunciation different or something, but it's just like I'm like it changes what I'm talking about here, like if, for example, like if I was going to use the word like me or it or something, right? Like maybe I'll go back between those two words for like 20 minutes. Like, okay, what's going to sound better? What's going to like touch somebody more? Like, do I want to be specific? Do I want to be broader? And that's kind of how I approach songwriting.
Awesome, awesome. All right. So looking at your social media, there's been a few teaser videos that we've seen where it's sort of like a VHS style videos. Is that a music video that we're hinting towards?
Yeah. So we plan to shoot this video for, well, it actually started off, we were going to shoot just like some assets, just like we didn't know we were going to do a music video. We kind of just went out there to shoot like these video assets that we would promote the song with. And we have this awesome camera crew, and they brought a like a real VHS camera, which sounds funny to say. They're not that old, but like, like he had one of those big like VHS cameras, and I'd always been in love with that aesthetic. Especially like growing up in the, you know, the early 2000s, we had like those really bad cameras that kind of just like, I didn't quite have a VHS one, but it was like, it still looked kind of like that. And I thought that that was always something cool that I liked doing. So we were shooting on like 3 different cameras, just for some various video assets. And then we ended up exporting the whole VHS take. Like it was on the whole time from start to finish of the shoot. And we were uh, standing in the kitchen, just playing this song over, just rewatching the footage. And I'm like, this is like a music video. Like, this is like so fun for me to watch. And we didn't have like quite enough footage to kind of like make like it's not like it's more like a visual representation, I guess, of the song, but it's a music video. Yeah. Like it's like from start to finish, it has like a whole theme kind of thing. Right. So that was super cool. And it kind of came together just very effortlessly. Like we didn't have to, you know, put in a whole bunch of work. It was just like, oh, it worked out. Like this was something that was totally cool. And we ended up putting a lot of work in, obviously making it look good afterwards, but the actual shooting itself, like it was all like improvised. Like we did this in a day. Like I bought this bouquet of roses and we burnt it like in the video, and it came out so cool. And I was like, okay, yeah, like this is the music video.
That's awesome. Just naturally came together while you were doing other things. That's
just
sick.
A ton of fun.
Nice. Glad to hear. So you mentioned that Love's Dead is the first step into a new project. So what can you tell us about this new project?
So basically, like, so for a year, literally about this time last year, when my manager Marcus Del Rey, when he like offered to manage me, he was like, okay, like put together your best songs. Like we're gonna do a project, because that was the goal, right? So I sent him all the songs that I thought were cool, and they kind of sucked, but I sent them to him at the time. And you know, like we kind of like we're just trying to keep making songs, and like I kept putting, like, not putting anything out, but just finishing these demos. And then like it wasn't until like the summer where like he was like, okay, yo, you're getting better. Like you found your voice, which is what I was talking about earlier. So I was like, okay, now that I know that, like I started making a lot of songs, and it was like we literally have this folder in the Dropbox called, it's just called album EP untitled, right? And like brackets, because we don't have a name for even the album yet. And it's got like 50 songs in it of just like songs I made for a year straight, just nonstop. And so that's why like people are like, oh, like, you know, when's this album coming out? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. Like the plan is mainly to kind of just put together all the best songs from this like year, and just create an album out of it of just good songs. Like I don't really care so much at this moment in time to do like the whole like intro ending of an album. I absolutely love that concept, but I think I'm just going to wait until like the next project maybe to do that. So for now, it's just going to be a collection of super cool songs that like we worked hard on, and just I think that's the better move for me right now anyway, because it allows me to like individualize the songs more and not kind of group them up and maybe lose some potential on some songs that would have otherwise done really well on their own. So yeah.
And even then, there still allows within music the room to have a cohesive energy between those standalone tracks.
Absolutely. And then that's what it's kind of like. It's all the same sound, right? So it is going to sound very similar, but I just meant it's not going to have like probably I don't know yet. We maybe we will have the transitions and stuff, but it's hard to say. Like it's just right now we're just playing it by ear, putting these songs out and just seeing where they go and what works. So
awesome. All right. Well, I'm very excited to hear what the rest of this new adventure, this new sound brings to you, Matthew. Before I ask my last question, though, where can the ambush, the listeners of the podcast, find out more about Matthew Zeitler?
Yeah, Instagram, just at Matthew Zeitler, Zeitler, because people have been spelling or pronouncing my name wrong probably since I was a kid. Everybody always says Zeitler. But yeah, my Instagram, Matthew Zeitler. That's where my whole goal with that is just like it's just music stuff, and then like stories and stuff is just me. Like Instagram lives is just me, like just doing day-to-day stuff, like like I don't need to pretend I'm some like, like fake person that I'm not. So it's it's whatever I'm doing is what's on my Instagram. I'm not gonna like pretend I'm somebody I'm not. And I think that's the best place to kind of like learn about me. And I'm definitely really active on as far as responding to people. Like I love talking to fans, and I actually respond very quick, assuming I have time. But yeah, I absolutely love talking to people on Instagram. So like don't be afraid. Feel free to like message me anytime on Instagram and I'll answer.
As long as he's not in a 12-hour songwriting session where he's
Yeah,
also
for sure.
abstaining from food, water, and everything
Yeah,
else.
for sure. That's the life.
Being an artist, right? It happens.
Yeah. Your sleep schedule just moves all over the place. Like it's like there were some points like in the summer I was really good at. I was like waking up at 8 a.m. and then it's just like some days it's like 12 a.m. and you're writing a song and you're like, this is so good. I don't want to sleep. So it's like 6 a.m. when you go to bed and then you're like, well, I just ruined my sleep schedule, but whatever.
Worth it.
Yeah, it's always worth it.
So
if a song comes out, if a finished song is the end result, it's worth it. That's the way I look at it. Like whatever I put into those vocal like recordings is like what's there. That's what's gonna stay. So I don't want to get away from that. If I'm doing great vocal takes that day and I've got this creative flow, like I don't want to walk away from that. I got to finish it. So that's how I kind of work.
Absolutely, absolutely, as you should, right? Once you got the groove going, might as well keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Might as well keep it rolling for sure. All right. Just want to admit, I am one of those people that spelt your name wrong.
That's okay. I'm not surprised. Like literally my whole life. Like it doesn't matter. I like the last name. Honestly, it's super cool. So
it's why I go by Colton G, because if I used my actual last name, everybody would get it wrong.
Yeah, it's just one of those things.
All right. So, last question, Matthew. So over this last 6 years, over the last even just 2 years of finding and actually honing in that actual sound, we've talked about the musical progression. But now what I want to know is, how has this journey, how has crafting these songs, releasing pieces of yourself out into the world, how has it helped you grow? Or what has it helped you learn about yourself?
Honestly, it's changed my life 100%. I used to like, I mean, it's funny because like I'm only 22, right? So when like I'm aware that I'm still a kid, especially because most of the people that I work with are at least like 25 or like whatever, and from even 22 to 25, that's 3 more years. Like every year you learn so much. Every month you learn so much. So the way I can look at it though is like when I was out of high school, I was very I was never really like a shy person, but I was kind of I guess like I took things very seriously. I took myself very seriously to the point where I was maybe a little bit too much. And I think like as I started to just write songs and like put stuff out there, like at first you're like, should I say this? Is that weird? Like, and then you're like, who cares? Right. Like, so it kind of just taught me more about just trying to be more like myself and just like not worry about what other people think, and kind of just put myself out there and just express myself. And that's kind of like how it developed me as a person. I'm more I still take myself seriously. Like I take my work seriously, but I'm not like, so I guess like absorbed in that thought process of just like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this, maybe I shouldn't. Like I just do it, right? Like I make a song. Like if I make a song and like, maybe I'm gonna mess up along the way, who isn't, right? So it kind of just it like matured me a lot. I think like I feel like if I never wrote music, I would have been a completely different person. So yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. It's just, I don't know if that came out right, but yeah, it just matured me literally as a person. I feel like I'm still learning a ton, but I know that this is what I want to do. And that kind of changed the way I wake up every morning now. It's like everything I do has to get me closer to what I want now, instead of just like, there's, I know exactly what I want. So that's the main thing for sure.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And like I said earlier, I can't wait to see what this new direction and knowing what you want, finding your sound, where it takes you from here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super happy to have been on here too. This was a ton of fun.
I dreamt I was famous, everything I made it. You stood by the pier saying, I wish I could have seen it. Playing songs we got lost in, I still hear you singing. Age 18, thought I knew it. On our first date, thought I blew it. Flashbacks to late nights and sunsets, I lost my mind. And honestly, you got me high, saying we were all we need. Now I think back to when I kissed you by the street lights, told you I was leaving in the night. Oh, I hate goodbyes, but I don't wanna see you cry. But I don't wanna see you hide away emotions when it's killing you inside. And this ain't much for love, but I see us for us. And we got something more than letting go. I hate goodbyes. Oh, I hate goodbyes. Oh, I hate goodbyes. Oh, I hate goodbyes.
I dreamt we got married, we bought our first house, and you'd always be dancing inside of our kitchen. Just a dream I got lost in, always thought we'd make it. You were the one, thought I knew it. Now we're all grown up and we blew it. Yeah. Flashbacks to late nights, sunsets, I lost my mind. And honestly, it got me high, saying we were all we need. Now I think back to when I kissed you by the street lights, told me you were leaving in the night.
Oh, I hate goodbyes, but
I don't wanna see you cry, but I don't wanna see you hide away emotions
when
it's killing you inside. And this ain't much for love, but I see us for us, and we got something more than letting go. I hate goodbyes. Oh, I hate goodbyes.
See you cry, but I don't wanna see you hide away emotions when it's killing you inside. And this ain't much for love, but I see us for us, and we got something more than letting go. I hate goodbyes.
The Desert Tiger Podcast.